Welcome to the Wealth Rebel Show. I am your resident creative rebel, Emma Wright, and today I get the absolute pleasure of speaking with Brian Worrall, a self-employed fractional financial director. Now, I met Brian, at an event where I was on the investment panel for Devon and Plymouth Chambers, and Brian and I just connected. I invited him to my mastermind, the Star Collective, to talk about the alternative forces of finance and entrepreneurship because I host a collective of entrepreneurs. And I just felt what Brian and I were talking about was really something that business owners and entrepreneurs needed to know all about. And it took us quite a while, Brian, to get into the collective. It took us a while to arrange that meeting, but wow, it was an absolutely awesome session. And I was like, Brian, we can't keep this to ourselves. We have to get you on to the Wealth Rebel show. We have to talk about some of the things that are really, really, really you are really, really passionate about. And keeping these stories to ourselves is just selfish, I feel like. And this is the whole purpose of the podcast, right? And the Wealth Rebel show. Your story for me is really iconic, and it's such a mirror in many ways of my own. As you journeyed from the north down to the south, you shredded the corporate world to step into the power of what you do as a fractional finance director. So before we dive into this time that we have with Brian, I was talking about what this show means to me. The Wealth Rebel show. This show is the love of my life. It's my voice, and it's something that I do because I love it. The world needs it, and it turns out I'm really good at it. And maybe one day I'll get paid for it. So it's my future wealth. It's my ikigai. Ikigai is a Japanese concept for living a life of joy and purpose. And I get to speak to inspiring people for hours. So I feel so blessed that I get to have these conversations. By the way, nobody gave me permission to do a YouTube channel and a podcast. I decided that this is something that I was going to do because it really formed a massive part of my heart chakra. And I really want thousands of people to learn from amazing guests. And you would pay thousands and thousands of pounds to work with people like Brian and the people that come on this show. So, these people that give up their time to share their knowledge, to share their story, to share their passions and their inspiration. So please do like, subscribe, and follow the show. It means the world to these guests, to Brian and me, and it really does mean the world. So first and foremost, Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Emma. Thanks for great to meet you. And I was when I first met you, like you said, at the Plymouth Chamber of Commerce. You had an interesting story to tell. Stories are so important in life, and and then we've had further conversations, and we both seem to have some similar backgrounds. We both come from the north, come down to the sunny southwest, and everything that it's got to offer. I think you're on the north coast. I'm on the south coast. I've come down here because we've got a boat. We're into our sailing. We've got a boat at Sutton Marina, and we can talk about that later. As part of my life. But but as Emma said, I am a fractional finance director. What is that? Well, it's so I'm a very experienced finance director. I was in industry for many years, having qualified as a chartered accountant back in the 80s. And so I used to work in automotive, retail, big companies as finance director, and I got to my late 50s and decided really I wanted another way. The FD role, it was all consuming. As I said to Emma, I was out 12 hours a day plus and doing quite a lot of international travel. Decided didn't have enough time for my hobbies and interests, and decided I wanted to change. And that's why I came to be a fractional finance director. So what a fractional finance director does is it's for companies, usually SMEs, but not necessarily. Um, and they might need an accountant, but they might need somebody 1 day a week, or they might need somebody 3 days a month. They don't need somebody full time at finance director level. They may have a bookkeeper, they may have a management accountant, but they don't need a finance director at that level every day. So that's where I can come in and help them out. And sometimes it's like I say, 1 day a week. Sometimes it's just for a particular project. You know, they might be looking for funding. Might need a forecast or a business plan. That's where I can come in and help out. Also acquisitions. So I've got a few clients, and that's what I do. I started off with a company called CFO Centre, who are a sort of national, international sort of, you might call them a franchise. They've got a big website and they find you clients, and then you work with them on a client. And I was with them for 3 years, and now I'm independent of them. And I see CFO Centre as my apprenticeship in this as a self-employed accountant. So
I
I have
love
my own company now. I don't go through CFO Centre. I invoice direct. And yeah, it's really interesting to see lots of different companies at different stages in their evolvement. I mean, and it's some are large, some are small. I've got a small group of companies. I've got another company that's just an individual UK company. So yeah, it's a mixed bag, a lot of variety, Emma.
I love that. I think that's one of the really inspiring things there were so many inspiring things that you said there. Sometimes we need a stepping stone, right? A stepping stone to move at, because when people feel like, they hit a certain point and people come to me all the time, Brian, because they want more time to do the things that they love, and they feel really stuck in that 14-hour day, that grind, that rat race. And the mind is such a fear-based system. The mind will tell you that if you change your life, if you get more time, you're going to die. It's a fear-based system. It doesn't know what's true and what's false. It's literally primal, and it'll go, this is my uncomfortable comfort zone. I want to be over there. I want more time. It's literally, this is killing me from the inside out. But we need to do something different. We need change. We want more time, but in order to get more time, something has to change. And what you've said is so inspiring, because sometimes we just need a stepping stone. We don't have to just go and do it all in one go to create that balance that we're so desperately seeking in our life. And I love the way that you described fractional. Did you know what? Until you described it, I have to be honest, I was like, what's a fractional finance director? It's splitting your time between
Yeah,
different companies,
exactly that. Yeah,
right?
that's it. Yeah, yeah, and it's for the clients. It means they've no commit. They don't commit to 1 day a week or 3 days a month, or it's what they need in their business. Sometimes it can be just they need somebody to be a sounding board, and just somebody that you can get hold of and talk to. So you do find people who are entrepreneurial also can be um, quite lonely on their own in it as well. And if
Yeah.
they don't got a finance person at their kind of level who they can talk to, so sometimes people just need that, and then it might be half a day a month, it might be
I think
whatever.
that's really important to say, Brian, because listen, let me tell you something, right? I have traded the stock market for 10 years in London. I'm a chartered financial planner. I have my finance hat on, right? And it gets lonely. When I'm making big financial decisions, I actually need a fractional finance director, if I'm honest. I mean, I'm just me at the minute. My business is is really starting out. I only founded my limited company in January, and I've been, getting back on my feet. But definitely, it is when you're in the entrepreneurial world, it's really hard to navigate and create that balance. And that is one of the problems that ends up creating problems for entrepreneurs because, and I think this is why a lot of people stay stuck in the working world because they see people leave, right? And I see this all the time. People leave the corporate world, they go into entrepreneurial world and they go back because they fail, because they stay doing the same 12, 14-hour days, fight and flight in firefighting, being constantly in fight, flight, and freeze with clients because they actually don't give themselves the time to change and they don't have that sounding board or they don't have somebody that they can really lean on. And I just want people to know that it's absolutely okay for you to have someone that is even in what you do helping you and supporting you along the way. I'm a coach and I have a coach. I'm a healer now in my business. I do wealth healing and I have an energy healer. I would love to have a fractional finance director, and I think a lot of SMEs listening to this will be thinking, yeah, do you know what? Getting funding. Let's dive into some of these topics in a minute, Brian. How these different areas are really holding people back from creating balance, and then how you've obviously, I'd love to hear more in your story, but fundamentally, how can I do this? They end up then going back. So the people in corporate are like, I ain't doing that. They've come back. Most people fail because they don't know how to create that balance and to create that freedom that they so desire. So it's amazing that you've managed to do that. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we've moved from the north to the south and we found each other. And now you're on the south coast and you're on the north coast. We have no competition. There's no north-south divide. It's all oneness in Devon, right? It really is.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more before we dive into some of those fractional kind of nerdy stuff that I love. Tell me more about your story and kind of the life that you want to lead as an entrepreneur through kind of your journey to leaving the north and moving down to the south. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, I'm semi-retired in all of this. I'm in my early 60s now, and so but I'm not ready. The reason I'm semi-retired, I don't feel like I'm ready for retirement yet by a long way. And let's talk about retirement's quite a tricky thing. So you've been so busy day after day. You've been constant deadlines, bit high-powered meetings, everybody emailing you, ringing, and then suddenly, retirement can be it's good in some ways, but in other ways, it's like, crikey, well, how am I going to fill my time? And it's a big, big, big step. And so, like I said, I don't still feel ready for it. So this is kind of how I'm bridging the gap. And maybe when I'm in my late 60s, then that might change, but still got plenty of energy. So yeah. So
I love that, Brian. Honestly, retirement is a non-word in my directory, okay? I
yeah.
really believe, and this is really interesting because a lot of people are listening to this probably in their 20s, 30s, and 40s and thinking it's too late to change. I have people that I work with in their 60s and 70s that are still changing, right? Age isn't not a factor. You don't retire in life. We do one of the things, if you listen to some of the other shows, Brian, you when you put me in your earbuds, you'll know that I do not believe in retirement because retirement is the biggest thing that kills us. It stops people from investing into their future because they're like, I never want to retire. That's really boring. And also, when people then get to retire, because don't forget, I've done both hats as a wealth manager. I've looked after people in retirement. They end up just not having a purpose in life. And that in itself leads to an early end of their life or something that is so lacking in energy. You shifted at 50, you then changed your life and you stepped through that stepping stone with with the CFO, fantastic. That is incredible. And now you've spent time where you're thinking, okay, I'm semi-retired, but mind me saying, you've just taken on your biggest client. You're not, we don't need to retire. What we are creating here is financial independence and wealth sovereignty so that you get to choose who you work with. And you're also, and this is really amazing because you've set yourself up really well with your financial director's hat on, right? Because you know how to run your own business. You're able to then give your clients what they need when they need it. You don't come from a place of lack. You are so financially secure, have that security. You've took the stepping stone you needed to get set up in entrepreneurship. And therefore, you are in such a beautiful place where when clients need a forecast, you can give them what they need and you're not focusing on selling things that people don't need. And that is one of the biggest challenges that people have when they set up in business and they're desperately looking for clients and they're coming from a place of lack. So you're in this place now where you're thinking, and this is I'm calling this out because I can the coach in me is your mind is saying, well, I'm in my 60s, I should be semi-retiring, maybe I'll retire. Let's throw that out. You're never retired. We're never going to retire. Where we might have independence, we get to choose exactly what we do when we do it. We're saying no to deadlines. Words are just spells, right? What is the word? Deadline. I don't want to be dead. I don't want a deadline, right? We
Yeah.
work with our clients. We have kind of targets and things that we want to do with clients, but we work to their needs. We create that kind of beautiful environment where we create balance. And you've really worked hard on doing that. And that's why your clients come to you because they also seek that balance. And it's an inspiration. It's and everything, Brian, is energy.
So, thinking about me, so you asked me about my story. So, I've got, whilst I'm an accountant, I'm perhaps not the sort of I'm not a traditional sort of accountant insofar as I've got a lot of other interests that might be surprising. So, as well as sailing, I'm an artist. I come from a very artistic family, and I went into accountancy as a career. Um, I sometimes describe myself as a bit of a square peg. Uh, but so I do watercolors. Quite a good standard, and I also play guitar, been in bands, write songs, that kind of thing. So I'm quite a creative as well. So I've got that going on, and plus my sail, as I say, I own a boat, and we sail from Plymouth along the coast, and want to get over to Guernsey next year. So it's all this is about getting a balance because there's no point owning a boat if you don't have time to use it. So all of this is about balance between wanting to do what you want to do in your life, but also still bringing some income in, and also keeping an interest in companies and business, which is what naturally I'm interested in. So
Oh, this is the thing, right? And this is what I'm learning. There's no, everyone is a square peg in a round hole. We are forced to confirm from the day we're born, we are conditioned to be what society tells us. And I think that is what leads to anxiety and depression. I think that is why we now have a society that is on antidepressants or has disease and has all these things that didn't exist back in the day when we were primal and we were living wild lives and we were in that different connection with nature, right? When you're out in your boat, you are in nature. You've got the waves that could take you out at any stage. When you are doing your watercolors, right? And you are doing your watercolors and you've got your pencils, you are letting all of that creativity flow out. And that is so beautiful. And that's your essence. And then when you go and spend time with your clients, I actually do believe, and I think this a lot, whilst the word accounting can be really boring, you are creatively designing numbers. You are creatively looking at someone's life and business. And that's what makes you different, maybe to someone that is not in their creative zone of genius. Everyone has creativity in them, but bashed out of us because from a really young age, if you're not the best runner, you're not a runner. Let me tell you, I was not the best runner. Yeah, I can run a half marathon now without training, and I signed up for one because I just do it because I love it. And I realize that I am this creative rebel. I talk about being a creative rebel. I don't draw things, but I just went and bought some watercolors and an easel at home to
Uh,
start drawing things out in my business, to start expressing myself because that was
yeah,
crushed from a really young age. I was
yeah,
told, you're good at maths, do maths, and that's it. And then
yeah.
I'm really blessed that someone told me that I was good at maths because a lot of people get told that they're bad with numbers because they're not naturally the best in the class. And this is one of the biggest things that crushes our creative part. Every single person on this planet is a creative being.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. And when it comes to, talking earlier on about entrepreneurs and forecasts and plans and people not having sort of the wherewithal to see it through. Well, one of the things that I've seen a lot is it's like so it's understanding a business. So when you put a forecast together, it's like what are the main drivers, of the business? Putting what do we need to into the company to drive the profit and loss and the cash flow. And I had a great years and years ago, I was FD for a small waste reclamation business, and they were recycling textiles. And so I went in to do a forecast and raise some mezzanine finance for them. And it was a classic example because they needed some numbers and they started looking at the numbers themselves, but they never really thought about like, right, how much feedstock do we need to get into this process to make a profit and to cover all the costs. The electricity costs even back then were enormous, and the transport costs. So it's like, so you got to sort of I'm not sure it's necessarily creative, but you just got to think of the whole, the whole business and how it works and what the drivers are, and from that forecast, we ended up running the business differently. It wasn't just about the funding; it was actually how we started collecting feedstock before the business. There was this big machine we were ordering from Italy, and before we ordered it, we started collecting feedstock because we realized we needed a lot more than we thought we did
Mhm.
to run the business. So it's things like that. So, you know, what are the key drivers? What makes the business tick? It's like a holistic view of the business. You can't just
Oh,
look at you need to look at the whole thing.
that
So,
word was really jumping out at me. Holistic. I know it's bandied around a lot, holistic, but it really is. And what it is creative, you have to have a creative mind to visualize and see something beyond what's right in front of you in this present moment, because we can see everything here, but sometimes we need to visualize and step out of that. And that is a really creative mind that takes that. So 100% it is. I always call it, creative finance. It's creativity that drives that forwards. And I believe when you have that kind of you're not traditional. I think you are. I think this is what we all humans came here to be creative beings, but we have our creativity crushed out of us because they want us to conform like soldiers in the army or whatever, to go into these roles to serve everyone else and to be there. I'm not going to go off on my conspiracy theories, but it just is. I think we're all waking up to the fact that we know that we are being conditioned and we're trying to change it. I take it all the time with my little boy and girl, Harry and Rose, who are 3 and 6. They go to school, but I'm constantly telling them in my own time that they can be, do, and have whatever they want. And if they want to be creative, we will be creative. Like, if my little girl wants to write on my flip chart that has some of my work notes on it, I'll be like, yeah, great, here's a pen. Go and be creative. And she starts writing all this stuff on. And she's 3, and I love it. And it's nurturing that square peg because we did not come to blend in the more, and this is really important for entrepreneurs, the more that you don't blend in, the more you stand out, the more you're going to find your ideal clients, actually. And it makes you stand out in such a really, really beautiful way. I just think, the more creative we can be, the better. when I do this, because I do this a lot when I work with clients, because I create from the wealth perspective, life strategies, financial strategies, and business strategies to get people thinking more holistically. Usually I'm trying to get people to step out of their current uncomfortable and start doing things differently
Yeah.
to be able to
Right.
then probably go on and have a finance director, right? Because then they've
Yeah.
got into that
Yeah.
position because they may be one step behind where they would work with you. Um,
But
and
one thing that's relevant to what you're saying is that when I was at Hexadex, in my FD role, we bought a company in America. We did a JV in America, and the guy there was called, his very memorable name was called Jack Stack. Jack Stack,
yeah,
and
Jack Stack.
and he had this concept called open book management, which we sort of subscribed to at Hexadex. And it was all about getting everybody in business to think about the business, to be creative about the business. And, his premise was that, when the factory system started, and people came in from cottage industries and started working in factories, they left their ideas at the door. They left their entrepreneurship at the door, started working in factories. And what he's trying to get is to get everybody thinking and creatively about the business, saying, well, how can we make this more efficient? Guys on the shop at every level in the business, we're sort of encouraged to get more involved in all of that. And then also, everybody in the business had to, why it was called open book management was everybody in the business had to know the numbers. So like, stock guy had to know his stock turnover. What was, everybody had to be responsible for their own numbers. It wasn't just a finance thing. This is what I try to get across to my
Oh,
clients. It's not just like
yes.
when you do a budget, this is, you need to get other people involved outside of finance. You shouldn't just find a spreadsheet. It's going to be, you need to get people to buy in. And what do they want in the next financial year, And what you've got to be careful then is that you end up with a wish list of huge amount of things that people want. And you've got to temper that. But you've got to get other people involved in financial plans of the business and where it's going.
I love that, Brian. I love what you've just said because one of the things when I was a trader, right, you would get shot if you even talked about what you got paid. It was like this massive, literally a massive secret of who got paid what, who got what bonus, right? And this is a massive thing. When people come to me, people don't talk about money because it's such a taboo topic. It's like you can't talk about money. You can't talk about your numbers. Nobody can know the real position. And that feeds in massively into your subconscious to the point where you either fear your numbers, so you don't look at your numbers, you fear your bank account. It's creating a fear-based system around finance and money and
yeah,
wealth, right?
yeah,
And this is
yeah,
one of the things
yeah,
that I'm trying to unshackle because I'm really open about wealth. I'm really open about money. When people come to work with me, even when they're in my mastermind, we'll go, let's talk about the numbers, right? Why keep it a secret? Because we are all where we are. Let's really be really open about what we want, right? Let's have that wish list because we're told, right? Make a wish, don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone you wish because if you tell someone you wish, it ain't going to come true. Let me tell you, if you don't share your wishes, it's not going to come true. That's the truth of it, right? And by the fact that you have this, oh, I love Jack Stack. He's my kind of person, right? Jack Stack. By having open plan finances, we are opening people up to the magic of numbers, the magic of numbers, the magic of
yeah,
finance, the magic of visualizing what all of this is going to create in your life,
yeah,
right? Whether we create it in a month's time, 30 days, and then longer term, because we need to break it down because we want to bring people on the journey, right? We want people to feel rewarded. The brain, one of the things I talk a lot about, the brain doesn't like a 10-year plan. That's why it doesn't like retirement because that's really boring. It's primal, and your people in your team are primal. They'll have a wish list that they want to experience tomorrow. in reality, right? So we have to be rewarding people all the time
Mm.
along the way,
Yeah.
right? When you do this, I'm going to reward you with something, right? And it's and therefore, because it looks for both things. It looks for threats and rewards as the brain. But if it sees it like a threat and it's pointless, you're going to lose people. And that's why I hate the word budget, actually, because budgets makes me think of like going on a diet, or also kind of what Liz Truss did a few years ago when we have these budgets, and what Labour's just done, literally shafting every single entrepreneur in the country
Mm.
that's the backbone of the country, with all the changes that it's made to the entrepreneurial world, right? Sorry, just putting it out there, Labour. But literally,
Well,
open finance is the way forward for me. Sorry, my love.
my MD used to say, "What's the point? Why do we have a budget anyway? Because by the time you got it finished, it's out of date anyway." But and I don't necessarily like the word budget either. But it's a way of thinking. It's about thinking about the business. It's thinking about where you want to get in 12 months' time, where you want to be. Do you want to be new markets? Do you want to be new products? Do you want to have enough money to buy fixed assets? What do you need to do to generate cash to buy the assets to grow the business? So it's even though the budget will never come true and the forecast is a
It's a forecast. It's a
forecast.
strategy. That's the way I see it. It's
It's a
strategizing. It's
strategy, and the budget's
forecasting.
probably not a great word, but I agree with what you just said about the recent budget.
Yeah.
Uh,
It is, and also what's happened in America, because everyone's being forced into this fear at the minute. And then we get like completely outlying things happening. And I don't really allow what happens in politics to drive my business. That's what's happening in the outside world, and I navigate it. Because then
yeah,
I go, right, what do I know? What are the rules that I have to comply with? Right? The rules are the rules. How am I going to steer my ship, my sailing boat through these waters, right? Through
yeah,
these waters creatively with my forecast, with my strategy, but then how am I going to reap the benefits along the way? Because my brain does not like the 10-year plan. It's here for the pleasure today, because I want to create, just like you do, the balance, because we have time on this planet. I don't know if I'm going to be here in 10 years. Nobody really knows what's going to happen as soon as I leave this place today. We don't know. Time is an illusion, but time is precious. And we have to live our life today. And we have to, and this is one of the things that when we create these strategies and these plans, Brian, and we get really clear on what it is that's going to drive our business, our staff, our clients forwards, we start taking action today
yeah, yeah,
to do it right now.
yeah. That's right. That's right.
And that's
And
when your funding comes in, right? Tell me a little
yeah,
bit more about that, because like some of the things that can hold us back is the money. Maybe we don't have. How do we get creative with funding as an SME?
it's not easy. Banks are very risk averse at the moment. Um, like I said, the first thing you need is a well thought out plan, a really well
Mhm.
thought out plan. And one of the things you need to do is do like a what if scenario. So if you're building a forecast, you've got to be able to flex it. So you've got to be able to say, well, what if COVID happens again? I hate to say it. Or what if you get inflation? So you've got to be able to flex the plan, because like the bank will, ask you those kind of questions. But there's different sources for different, so a startup, I mean, I have got some contacts in venture capital, and they are, I haven't got a huge amount of experience in dealing with VCs, but they will lend to or invest in businesses, but usually they need, sometimes they'll invest in startup businesses, but quite often it's that you need to have something of a trading history before they'll even consider you.
And that's the
So there's
same with banks, really, to be honest. Like
chicken and an egg.
You need
Yeah.
that forecast. You need to have a forecast. You need to have a business plan. You need to know what you want to create. At the end of the day, it's really exciting to create a forecast. Let's put some energy into this. Let's create this really beautiful what if scenario, these financial forecasts of what we want to go out there and put into the world that is fully what the world needs right now. And you've got your angels. I call them angels, my venture capitalist connections, because they are the angels. They are there. They have money. They want to invest in you, but they need to see that plan. And they might come in at the start, because I have seen people seed finance, right? So you have people that will be in at the start. They're not doing it for the VCT or the EIS, because that's usually when it's further along that you need to
Yeah.
get, they're getting tax breaks. So there's some angels that do it purely for the tax breaks, but there are some angels that do it because they really believe in founders and entrepreneurship. So you need to be in these circles to really find these angels. And I seem to be in this circle. I've always been around angels. I was talking to, so one of the first episodes on the show, Brian, is a founder called Bright Joe Wellstead, who's just founded a company called Drink Ocean, and they got out there with an early business. And so there are people out there that are looking for opportunities to help these entrepreneurial people, but you need a business plan. You need to have a reason for what
Yeah.
you're doing. You need to put something in it, and you might be doing that whilst you're still working. You might be
Well, you need
doing
to
it in
do,
your stepping stone phase,
yeah.
and that is okay.
Yeah. Well, you need to do a business. You need doing a business plan helps you think about and check your business idea
Yeah,
because it might, who are your competitors? What are your unique selling propositions? What are your products? What's out there that's going to act as blockages for you?
yeah, I
And
call that this SWOT analysis, right? Your
yeah,
strengths,
SWOT
weaknesses, your
analysis, all of that. You
opportunities.
need to do all of that. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that. It's like police. I love my detective. One of the things when I was early on in my life, I was maybe going to be a detective when I was going to do forensic science. I was also going to do marine biology. I ended up doing finance and accounting at uni, Brian. So, so your SWOT analysis for me is really sexy. I really
Yeah.
put the energy into these tools because I love it. I get creative with it, and so do you, right? And that's why you're so successful at what you do. Another thing that at the minute, and I think this is so really great to talk about, I've just started a business. I've got a meeting with Business Boost, right? And I'm talking to the local authorities about some of the benefits that I'm entitled to because my business is just starting out. So go and ask the questions. Go down to, if you're just starting out and you really want to pivot, and you're really unhappy, go and speak to citizens advice and see what am I able to kind of get my hands on right now. I've just started a limited company. Who's out there? So I started having these conversations, and a friend of mine said, "Oh, I've just spoken to someone at Business Boost. They put me in touch with them. I've got a meeting next week about my limited company. What am I going to do? I need my business plan. I have a business plan, but I'm going to sit down and spend some more time on it and map out those what if scenarios." And I'm able to do that because that's my
Yeah.
brain. But fundamentally,
Yeah.
that's why you can help people so much
Yeah.
if they're
And,
at that stage and they need
yeah.
to
And
to
if,
do
if
some
you're
pivoting.
creating employment, then maybe you need to look at the region, what grants are available for.
Hmm.
But I mean, we've done that in the past. In the one company I work for, we got some good grants for, um, either creating or safeguarding. Sometimes it'll, jobs in a region. They will help with some of the cost of capex.
What's capex?
Sorry,
What do we mean when we say capex?
capital
Just for
expenditure.
Yeah, just for the people that are
Sorry,
listening that don't talk
that's
our
finance
lingo.
finance lingo.
Yeah, I get called out on the jargon all the time, because it's we get used to it. We know what our budget is, but capex is like it's like the SWOT analysis, strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. It's just
Yeah,
looking at yourself
yeah,
holistically,
yeah,
and then looking at that capital expenditure and thinking. And there are grants, Brian. You're so right. That's one of the things that I'm looking at, kind of thinking about what I do is so needed. And I've invested heavily in my business, and I want to it's there to be taken. They want to support businesses. we're probably questioning whether they do after the budget, right? After what Labour has announced with some of the changes they've made to national insurance for small businesses, especially direct run businesses that are literally bootstrapping a lot of the time what they're doing. It blows my mind what is going on there because they're not going after the wealth, they're going after the people that don't necessarily have it yet. Um,
Mm.
but navigation is so important. Ah,
But changing the subject, so go one of the things. So, me doing what I'm doing now, um, I've only been able to do this because A, I've got a good pension behind me and I've paid off the mortgage and the children are off our hands now. So, I can do after, as I say, I'm in my early 60s. So I've been through all of that. The property treadmill, paid everything off, and that's right. So, because it's important to say that what I'm doing now with this self-employment route, you've no secure income's up and down, up and it can be good some months and not good the next month. You could be paying yourself a good salary, and then there could be not much to pay the phone. It's really up and down, and so you've got to have savings and a pension. Really, you've got to have something behind you to be able to do this.
and
It,
that's
it,
sometimes why it's the stepping stone of still staying in your career, even dropping down to 3 days a week, so you have the
yeah,
space to maybe go and create things. Because I know people
mm,
that do that. So I've got friends in the Southwest that are super entrepreneurial that still have their careers in London, but they're remotely working from a beautiful place in the world whilst they're founding and launching businesses, right? So this
yeah.
is happening all the time because they don't have their mortgage paid off. They don't have a pension yet. They haven't maybe even had children, right? So you don't have to have all of those things in the bag. But, from my perspective, I've literally just gone through a divorce, Brian. I literally have no assets right now because mine is tied up in my divorce. My house
Mm.
is there. I'm renting, right? And I have a 3 and a 6-year-old. So my children are not behind me. They are very much present in my life. And I'm not able to draw from my pension. I'm 42 next week, right? So my stance on that is that we have to feel safe. Safe is so important. We have to have some form of security, and that could be through getting grants, getting some support, and having that stepping stone to give you the ability to step into where you want to be, creating the change as you're going along, creating the life balance. Because if you don't have life balance and you don't have your health, you're going to burn out. And you don't. I really believe that COVID happened because it showed us that we had to change. And a lot of people moved to the southwest, actually, left places like London, Bristol, even up north, moved down here. And I'm seeing that in the beautiful community that I live in Braunton. People are moving here because they've realized, even in their 20s and 30s, flipping heck, I don't want that life. I don't want to be in corporate. I still maybe want to have the career for a period of time and maybe forever. Who knows? Because the more that corporates embody flexible working and holistic working and take the Jack Stack approach, right? The more that they're going to retain this incredible talent within them, even if they allow them to go on and create something for themselves as well. And I'm seeing that a lot where people are going and being financial advisors, but still have their side hustle. And it's not a side hustle. Let's not call it a side hustle. It's their own venture whilst they're creating stability and security, because then they're not coming from a place of lack in their business.
I think there's a lot of opportunities down here, Emma. I think what I've noticed, I mean, coming down here as a tourist for many years before we moved down here, which feels a bit surreal actually when you're on the A30. Think, I was saying to my wife yesterday, well, this used to be our route as a tourist, and now it's just our day-to-day route. But I think businesses, I think there's less competition somehow in some areas in business than down here. And I've seen quite a lot of businesses flourish. I mean, no doubt there's ones that obviously there's ones that haven't succeeded, but I think if you work hard down here, you can do really well. And Roskill, it did. So do you know Roskilly's ice cream?
No,
Well,
tell me,
Roskilly's
Ross.
are all over the southwest now. When we used to come down and we used to go on the Lizard, so it's in this lovely farmhouse on the Lizard, they were a really small business. They were a farm and they did some barbecues and they did made a bit of ice cream and just sold it there on site. And now, 20 years later, they're everywhere in the southwest.
Yeah,
You know, they some of the microbreweries are doing real. It feels like things are less crowded business wise down here than they are maybe in from where I am, Yorkshire originally, and
yeah.
Lancashire. It feels like less there's more space and it's less crowded and more opportunities. That's just my what do you agree?
I think, I think it's a little bit of not always, because I
Not
see
always.
that some people don't flourish here, especially in North Devon. North Devon is a little bit of an interesting place because it can be quite poor at times. And so I
Like
see
what, sorry?
I poor, not as much
Um,
money, definitely not as much as the South, right? Because I've seen the whole of the Southwest. I used to cover the whole of the Southwest as a wealth manager. So I've seen how in the south of Devon, it is very abundant. It is changing, and I'm seeing some really big shifts even in North Devon now. And I was telling someone called Paul Webb, who runs one of the big business networking events in the Southwest, I was saying there is a shift in energy across the Southwest, and it's a real opportunity for companies to flourish. But I think that the reason that a lot of companies haven't flourished is because they haven't worked smart. I feel like yes, it's hard, working hard is really important, but you have to, working hard is one thing, and you'll kill yourself if you just go at it without a plan,
yeah.
without a proper strategy, without a proper vision, and without the trust in what you've got is really beautiful. With this ice cream, you know, it everyone can do ice cream, but what makes them different? What makes them the square peg
Mm,
in the round hole
mm,
that's going to make me go and choose Ross instead of the classic ice creams that are always out there, right? What's going to make me choose that ice cream?
yeah.
It's standing out and it's being smart and then being committed. You have to really be committed to what you do and keep talking the same story every single day because you really believe it, because it really excites you. It's what gets you out of bed every morning, because you only work hard every day for 20 years because you're really passionate about what you've created, and you have the space, whether that's in your headspace, whether that's physically because you're in the Southwest and you've got, you're going out and you're with your cows that I make. Is it cows that make the ice
Yeah,
cream?
they do. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they did actually.
Dairy,
Yeah, they
yeah.
do.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. But I mean, it's a mixed bag, Emma, in the South Devon as well. It's a mixed, there's some good, there's some places that aren't that, prosperous, and some places that it's just a real South. I mean, and Southampton is incredibly expensive. I mean, coming from the north down here. We found it too expensive. We've done because we live near York, so when we sold our house near York, we did quite well. But coming down here, the amount of money you need is it's very expensive. But
yeah.
yeah,
It's the same here. It's my family moved from Bradford. You don't get a lot for your money in Bradford, let me tell you, after a long time. But fundamentally, sometimes you have to make a choice of where you want to be in the world. And
yeah.
even if you're used to a four-bedroom house, do you really need a four-bedroom house? Or do you want to have the space of the beautiful, I'm not sure I'm going to say sunny. North Devon doesn't is not as sunny as South Devon. I used to drive down the North Devon Link Road and then go along the M5 to the south coast to Budleigh, Salterton, or the places like the really nice villages where my wealth clients used to live. And then I'd be like, oh, it's blooming sunny and hot here. And then I go back and it gets darker and darker. That's why it's lush in North Devon. It's
Yeah.
green. It's like the
Right.
Jurassic coast
People
because
say
it
there's a
rains a lot.
yeah, people say because when we moved down here next last November, and it just rained and rained in South Devon. We're in a place called Newton Ferris, Nos Mayo. I don't know if you've ever been. Beautiful, beautiful place, an estuary overlooking, really, really nice. But it rained and it rained and it rained from November till probably March. It felt like it was raining all the time, and people
Yeah.
kept saying, "Oh, there's a reason why Devon's green. There's a
It,
reason."
and it is because it
And
rains,
it's
but then
quite
I
wet.
wonder what the water company do with all the water then, because we're always on a constant ban. Anyway, that's another story, isn't it? But you know what? This is just wonderful because I think there's so many nuggets there that people can take from hearing your story and hearing about, how you've created that eclectic balance in your life where,
Yeah,
you are
that's
doing
a good
things
word,
differently.
eclectic. Yeah, I like eclectic. Um, yeah, but what was I going to say? Um, yeah, um, yeah, it's a lovely. I think, yeah, that was it. I think when you move down here, it's important to keep thinking a bit like a tourist because keeping your mind open to, what's on, what's going on, because it's easy to come down here and just get involved in house renovation and this, and if you're not careful, you get, you're not outwardly looking as much as you should be. So, and that's why I do sailing as well, because it takes you to Salcombe and Foy and the Elm and places like that. So I think it's quite important to keep
That's
thinking
that's
as
an
a
important
tourist,
That's a really important point, Brian, that you've mentioned because when I left London, I came here for the surfer beach life and I ended up living 9 years in Swimbridge, working harder than ever, and I never learned to surf, right? And my subconscious autopilot carried on the rat race. I drove more hours than
That's what
ever
I mean.
because I was in my
Yeah.
car, schlepping up and down towards Exeter, all around the southwest in my car. And then I was like, when I had my little boy Harry in 2018, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I hit burnout. And it was like, boom, something has got to change. And then 6 months ago, I moved to Braunton. Everyone has to leave a marriage, but that's another story. But I realized everything had to change in my life. And now I literally I'm on the beach every day. And it's so easy for you to forget that why you came here,
Yeah,
that
that's what I
I'm
mean.
not a
Yeah,
tourist, but I am better than a tourist because I get to have the sunny days, not just the week of rain when they've come down
yeah,
here. I feel
exactly.
so blessed. I do yoga every day. I go and I'm in a run club with incredible people that inspire me. And I finally realized that my brain was keeping me in my London life. And I'd lost why I came here. And so what you've just said really resonates on such a deep level. And I think wherever you are in the world, how can you be a tourist in your life? How can you create a lifestyle every single day where you are living an abundant life every single day? It's so, so important that we realize that our life is for living today and our entrepreneurial ventures and our career should fit into that life because we spend so much time at work, right? If you
Yeah,
don't love it, it's going to be really hard for you. That is where the hard part comes from. We work in something we love, it's not hard work. If you're doing something that doesn't bring you joy, wherever you are in your world, look at your career, look at what you're doing and switch it up so that you can
yeah,
create that
yeah,
incredible life. One thing you did say, I just want to end on this if that's okay, Brian. One thing that you said is that, you know, I I feel like that square peg. I feel that I've always felt like I never fit in anywhere. And since I've really embraced my weirdness and completely and utterly don't give a flying Scooby Doo about what anyone else thinks of me, I have flourished. And when you flourish, everything else around you flourishes, right?
yeah, that's right. I think because I've been able to shed off the complete, energy sapping, 12 hour plus a day job. And because I can do this, what I'm doing now, part time, and it's more interesting. It's more, I don't feel as much of a square peg anymore because it's helping companies out. It's more interesting. It's helping people. It's not just deadlines for the board and reports it's it's helping companies out along the way. And then also I've got time for all the other things that I do, my other eclectic interests. So yeah, it's nice. And coming down here, the other thing I was going to say is that through the sailing, part of a sailing club. So we've already got like a ready-made social, and we help on the bar there in Plymouth. They've got their own clubhouse and everything. So it's really not, and they do social sales like we did once to the Yelm last week. Uh, So we've already got a ready-made social circle down here. Because then imagine moving down also. If you moved down here and you didn't know anybody,
Mm.
it could be quite isolating. So, but yeah, but the
100%.
whole thing about being able to go part time has allowed me to. I feel less of a square peg now, and I'm able to put energy into. I've been having these art lessons with somebody called Julia Borodina. She's a Russian fine artist. And she came second in Landscape Artist of the Year on TV. She's fantastic. And well, actually, I was doing this before when I was full time. I was still making time to because I was determined that the job wasn't going to consume me completely. So I was going to the art school in Leeds when she was doing courses there. Now I do them online with her, but she's brilliant, Julie.
And that's what I was just going to say, Brian. Not everyone can afford to join a sailing club, right? But doing something that you can join is really important. So loads of people have moved to Braunton, and we go to a running club and it's free. And it was created by someone that wanted to create a community feel. And I go and I started going in the summer, and it has changed my life. It honestly has. At a time when I felt really lonely and isolated, I had a place to go. And now I will not miss Run Club, right? I feel really passionate about it because it's given me that outlet. And one of the things that I've realized is that this was created by somebody that wanted to create that for themselves. Don't wait. Go and create something where people can just come and meet, and you can create that. You don't have to wait for anybody else to create that community, because community is everything. And when you create something, people will start coming, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's one person, and it's become really famous. And then I met someone recently, Brian, when I was at Saunton, because I started going to Saunton for my community before I met Run Club, the Saunton Sands Hotel, about 18 months ago. And I was in the sauna, just having a chat with someone about Run Club, and he said, "Oh, you go to the run?" I was like, "Yeah." He said, "I saw that, and I was thinking that, and I'm in South Devon, and no one has it." And I was like, "Create it, do it, right?" Because it's so amazing for us to realize what we love and what we want to be doing. Even if you just go for the cup of teas, people just come for the cup of teas. They don't run. They just come for the cup of teas, and they wait for people to come
Yeah.
back, and then we all hang out and chat, and then we go on off and do
Community
our
is so
day.
important.
And then I'm doing
Communities.
stuff online. I do a belly dancing thing where on an evening I speak to someone that I met at a retreat in Lisbon in September, and now I'm in her world and she's in India, and I do belly dancing with her online on an evening, right? There are so many things that you can do to connect and create community. And that was $70 for a
Yeah.
7 week course,
I've,
right?
yeah, I've got to tell you about archaeology, Emma, because that's done that you talk about my eclectic. So when I was still living in Yorkshire, um, I've always been interested in archaeology because of time team and everything. And in our village, in a place called Skipwith, there's a moat, and in the middle of the moat, there's a platform, and there used to be a manor house on it. So I raised money through the local council, and we had a community dig. And it was absolutely. We had this guy called John Kenny, he's a community archaeologist. So he's a trained archaeologist, and he comes along and shows you how to do the whole project. And what you do and what you're not allowed to dig. You have to dig in layers, and you've got to record everything you find in each layer, and it was absolutely fascinating, honestly. We found the footings of the old manor house. We did all the geophys. We found pottery going back to the 1200s. We, the family that lived there, came across with William the Conqueror. They were called Estuteville, and they changed the name to Skipwith. It was absolutely so, and it was a community thing, and we attracted people from other community digs in other villages around York, and they came to our dig, and we went to their dig. And now I'm trying to set one up here because
Yeah.
it's just something I want to do. It's just it's one of those things. I've got the time
You
next
create the
year.
space, you make the change, you create the change, you make the space, create the change, and you find the time.
Yeah.
But it really all starts with having that vision and that plan.
Yeah, you got if you don't, you've got to have ideas and vision, or else you don't have. I want to say you don't have anything if you don't have ideas and vision, but
We all have it. We just don't give
we all
ourselves
have.
the time
That's the way
to
to put it.
explore it, to dig. How,
Yeah,
like an archaeologist, you're digging, do that with yourself. What
oh
is
yeah,
wealth?
yeah.
Let's just finish with that final question, Brian, just to wrap this amazing conversation up today. What is wealth? What does wealth mean to you?
Right. Wealth means to me, um, it's about being able to spend time on doing the things you love. So it's having this balance. So you've got some money behind you, and you've got some income coming in, but it's about having the time to follow your passions, and that's wealth is in ideas and your passions that you have and the things you want to achieve in your life. So
Yeah,
that's to me, that's what wealth is.
I love that. I love that. It always comes back to time. I can't ever escape it. And we can't, time is precious. It's so precious. It's for me, it's the
Yeah,
precious, it's like a precious metal. We think of gold and
yeah.
silver as precious metals, as assets, time. And it's not limited. We're not limited with that because we don't know when we're going to take our last breath. We just need to kind of let's just really create that space to nurture it and to nurture ourselves. Thank you so much for coming on to the Wealth Rebel Show and for sprinkling some of that beautiful insight into your story, into your life, into to how you've created that shift into that being that square peg in your life and allowing that to abundant. Thank you so much, Brian.
No problems. Good to be on. Thank you.